meeting to order at 6:04.
Oh, thank you.
And we review the minutes of May 13th. I cleaned up a little language, John, but
No, that's fine.
okay.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Give me about another 60 seconds, please.
I looked at them at work.
I will second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. The chair report, just to update you on the Wilson Lake lot. I spoke to, Dan emailed me and I spoke to Jen about it, and it will close by the end of the month. So that's why I wanted the signs.
Yep.
To put, so after it's purchased, I'll hang the signs,
Nice.
like three of them, 4.
We don't need a full crew to do that this
Well-
time? You don't need me to show up and go.
He's got
Waiting
this little string thing.
Oh, I got one of those.
I've never seen that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, once that happens, then I'll hang the signs, okay? Do you wanna go through old business B, C, and D first, and then?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you haven't noticed, the news release language is on the website. Dan sent that in a couple weeks ago, and the IT guy put it right on a website under our committee. So, probably, maybe you should have been on the front page, but you don't have to put that. And the select board said they don't really need to authorize that, so if we have anything else we want to put on, it sounds like we can just do it. Okay? John, did you go out and help with the signs?
I did not.
Yep. Okay,
Oh, sorry.
okay. You want to just tell John about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. We went out and basically put the signs roughly, the idea was about every 50 feet up and down both sides of the frontage of the lots. And the management plan, you'll see a picture of the map that'll give you an idea. So we have, the lot is much longer on one side and it's a smaller lot on the westerly side of the road. But yeah, we started off about, every 50 feet apart, but then you're realizing that you might not have, the proper tree that's the right distance off of the road type of stuff. So we started freelancing it a little bit more, but just tried to make sure that we had enough that you could see one sign from the other.
Good.
And yeah, tried to keep them off of the road just enough that people wouldn't be yanking them off the trees, but nor are they far enough off the wall. It's a 2-rod road.
Right.
So we also didn't necessarily want to have it be so far off the road that when the leaves are on, you couldn't see the sign back on the wall, which might be as much as 15, 20 feet off the road in spots. So we did put them on road, just off of road edge, I guess is probably the right term to use.
Okay.
So I think they're pretty visible, and hopefully they will, have an idea that we can stop the notification that it's a public land, conservation land, will hopefully slow down some of the ATV and UTV damage.
Yeah. Did you happen to take the GPS position of the damage?
I did not, but I have within all of my plan stuff. I have the GPS coordinates at home. I can just send them to you if you
I
want
was just
to.
thinking we could send them to the game warden.
Yeah, and in fact, there's not a lot to dig on, but I've actually got a guy working on my house that's a deputy in this area. Not necessarily our deputy here in this town,
Okay,
but he's good friends with Thistlewood, so he's like, good guy, he'll
Okay.
probably do X, Y, or Z.
okay,
And yeah, so I told him that we would be talking about this tonight and get word back to him. And yeah, we're about at that time where I can give him a GPS coordinate and then he can go out there. The fellow that I talked with said that he would probably, since it is quite a ways back in the woods and the terrain is not good, not knowing exactly what he's getting himself into, he probably would, you know, park at the school or whatever and then ATV back in to monitor it. And he said that if in fact it looked as though there was, again, this is secondhand from the deputy fella, that, you know, it may go so far as to generate cameras.
Oh.
And the cameras are programmed as such that they pop up on his phone. So when it comes into that, you know, it may be that there's more information on exactly who's doing this.
Good.
So evidently they're pretty sneaky about those things, but then again, they are game wards. They have a little experience at catching naughty people.
Yeah.
Not firsthand, of course, but you know.
You're okay.
Sure. Good. Anything else you want to add, Jim?
I was just disappointed, not only with the erosion and the places, you know, the fire pit, but the litter. It just, I can't believe people just throw stuff. I guess I can believe it.
Right.
But it's so disappointing and disheartening to see it. I mean, down to that, it was either a catheter bag or an IV bag in the middle of the road. Remember that?
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's aggressive.
Maybe the road was so bumpy that they didn't want to.
Yank it. No, I know.
Oh.
But that's
This
just,
is not
I mean, I'm an outdoorsman.
not for
I
red
would
light
think
consumption.
of taking a can and just chucking it.
No.
And, you know, even you'd go 10 feet off the trail or whatever to post a sign and
Still stuff.
bottle there or a
Right.
can.
Yeah, I mean that area where most of the damage has been is really the party spot. It's as far as 100 feet off of the road where there's a big UTV turnaround where they're going, hey, let's go over into the brook, come over here to the fire pit, come over there to do who knows what, go over there to go back into the brook.
Yeah.
It's definitely a spot.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to send me those coordinates, or do you have contact with Thistlewood? I think I have.
I don't have any contact for him, I'm
Okay.
sure you've got it. And there's also a map of it too. I can email you a PDF of the map that has that latitude, longitude grid on it that shows all of the lot,
Okay.
so that it's not just necessarily that one spot. And he'll obviously see it with the signs now as
Yeah,
well.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything about West Ham?
I have not talked to Wes, no.
Okay. And just one other thing I didn't mention is Kelly has resigned from the board
Oh, no.
unofficially. Her work schedule changed. She works Tuesdays and Thursdays and every other weekend. And I thought, you know, maybe if we move back to Monday, if that would work, but I don't know how that would go with everybody else, so, it doesn't look good.
Should I include that in here, or since you said it's unofficial for now, so?
It's unofficial.
Okay, so,
I talked to Jen about it, and the thing is, when you're an elected official, you just can't quit. You know, it doesn't look good. If you're appointed, which you were before you were sworn in.
Correct.
Or you are now appointed.
I'm appointed, I think,
Till
until
next,
26.
right,
Yeah,
at the town hall.
yeah,
So, appointed, it's a little easier to get rid of,
right.
but.
Thanks a lot.
you just sweep under the rug.
So if you hear of anybody that is interested in joining us, that would be great, so.
And regarding schedules, I'm coming, come the end of July, I'm done, retired, so
Yeah.
I'll have more time.
I thought you were gonna say you were leaving us too.
Yeah.
I'm done. I've had enough of this.
Yeah,
one day in the woods with Steve.
That's it. It doesn't take long. Just talk to my wife.
All right. Anything else on that?
I'm sorry, who is West Ham?
West Ham is a fellow that lives over on Fox's Ridge who, for the lack of a better term, I'll call him the local unofficial historian of town.
Okay.
He can go on and on about all the way through who had the property 5 owners ago, who had this, who did that. Like, for example, he had made mention of the town farm property, and he had gone digging in town records as far back as into the 20s, when I think that was about when the town acquired it.
Okay.
And he had even found some stuff that pertained to what the hay yield was on the pasture at the time, because it was the poor farm
Okay.
that was actually a farm, you know,
Right,
an active farm. So he, you know, when he starts going, you know, so-and-so was so-and-so's mother, and so-and-so's buried out on the hill, and so, that's the guy you want to talk with,
Understood.
so.
Thank you.
You wanna take a minute to look over the plan?
I'd like to.
Yep.
In the, I'm looking at the maps, the
Yep.
Hebo Road is actually this line right here.
Yeah, I will label that, good. And again, this is a draft, so outside of a rewrite, that's where it's going, yeah. Yeah, by all means, just fire off anything that you see are easy omissions that I can put that.
With you know, 2, whatever the road is. That the
2,
school's on, right? And then 2 Lebanon or.
Okay. So by all means, write on that thing and fire it away at me. Like I said, I didn't, this is not, I want to say, not clerical, but as far as like visually speaking, I've got, you know, color this, color that, spacing, all those sorts of things have still yet to be done on this. I just simply wanted to get the information out there to make sure that we didn't have any glaring omissions as such that when we put this plan to the town and then we start recommending things that should be done, it can be referred back to the plan saying, because they're inevitably going to say, well, what did the forester say? And does it say it in the plan? Those sorts of things. So we don't want to go too far off of script in the upcoming years if we recommend things out here. We want this document to be the base document for those recommendations. So obviously you can't take care of everything, but like I said, visually speaking, there's a lot to be done with it, but in the substance of it is what I'm referring to, so any omissions in that manner.
Okay. The management objectives, those were from the original management plan?
Yeah, and they're pretty boilerplate.
Yeah,
Of most
but they haven't
things, yeah.
changed to the update.
Right, no, that was all the same. I didn't bring the old plan here with me, but management objectives have stayed the same. And you know, primarily came, at least, in various words from the comp plan.
Yep, yep.
Because again, that's, if we're referring to the plan, we want to make sure that it's
Yeah, I just,
in line with those sorts of things, yep.
and then under access, second line, gated by the town of Lebanon
Mm-hmm.
rather than by the town.
Hold on, where are we here?
Just to be clear, it's not Acton that gated it. Under general description, access.
Okay,
Second line in access.
okay. Well, that would be implied if it's the Lebanon end,
No.
but sure, that's fine.
Not if it's, anyway. So I never walked out that far, but there's a gate at the end of the property?
No, at the end of the Hybo Road, all the way
Okay,
down in
that's-
Baker's
right.
Drive.
Okay. Okay.
So that's not, it's not at the end of the property, it's not, you know, it's another 2/3 of a mile, let's
Yeah,
say.
okay. Yeah.
So you do prefer that to be added in, Mike? Okay.
Because right above it, you're talking about town records and then the Acton Town Forest lot.
Yep.
You know, just to be clear.
Yep, no, no problem. What now? Fire away.
Fire protection in April ice storm in 2024 laid down a lot of hardware generation. I'm being a nitpicker here.
Would you like me to be more specific?
Yeah, a lot.
Well, okay.
Good. The, under narrative, Steve?
Yep.
The last, part of that sentence, is that something that we want to put in here? I agree with you, I just,
The Hahn and Grant family part?
yeah, to perhaps add these lots to the town forest? Or,
I don't see any
Potential-
harm that could come from it, but I think it should be mentioned somewhere in the plan, though, because otherwise it looks as though when we try to bring up that we should have, again, the line itself is non-existent.
right, right,
So if you don't say, hey, by the way, we may be trying to find where the line would be,
yeah.
then that implies we should have relations with
Okay.
the neighbors.
Just,
It doesn't necessarily have to go there, but
No, no,
I
that's-
do think that that statement does add something.
yeah, okay. Oh, you know what? Maybe back. Do you want to put a disclaimer in that the update does not include updated inventory or?
That's what I was gonna ask that question, at what part of the process do you record the estimate of stumpage?
We have not had one since the original plan.
Okay.
So in the, maybe in the narrative maybe, or management objectives, just a disclaimer that this update was a walkthrough or whatever term you used, Steve,
Yep.
And does not include,
an updated inventory.
Yep.
Okay, just to see why. So when you say some of the 2 to 3 inch diameter hardwoods have bent over in the ice storm of 2024, you've already read that there was no inventory done, so that's why you
Right.
use the word some. and
Right,
not
again, we've
27.
used that, we've used the phrase, I used the phrase, and we've used it here, that this was as much a qualitative update than a quantitative update. So to that extent, you know, it should be noted as
Yeah,
such, I suppose.
yeah, yep. Now, the stand descriptions and prescriptions, are those from the old plan, or are these new?
No, they are completely updated. I
Okay.
mean, obviously, they have the similar, I did not, because there was no new inventory, I did not change any stand lines.
Yeah,
Although we did change the Han lot border. And since the original plan was based primarily upon the tax maps, and more closely the GPS information has shown that, like, yes, this property, like for example, the western side of the road lot, you know, looks very similar to the way that it looked in the original plan, but it's tilted a little bit. The lines are not parallel across, you know, the Hebo-Hibo Road or whatever. They don't all have the same bearing type of situation. So for example, yeah, all of that sort of information, everything has, the stand descriptions have been updated.
Okay,
The names of the stands and the acreages were updated only to reflect the new or updated lot line, I should say.
okay, do you wanna add that disclaimer to the beginning?
No.
Okay,
And the only reason I say that is because it's gonna start getting the compare and contrast between an old plan and a new plan. If nobody has ever seen the old one, it's gonna get really deep and nobody is gonna follow backwards, and it's gonna end up generating more and this is me speaking
from
of our
experience.
selectmen primarily.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So I'm open to things. I'm okay with, you know, stuff.
So in the beginning,
But,
your description of what the update is, you're gonna say it's not quantitative, it's qualitative.
Yes,
So no measurements were taken.
yes.
and-
Get that, I think, getting that out right out front, and then go
Yep.
into it.
Or, and maybe why was the plan asked to be updated?
That's up to the committee, I suppose. By that I mean if it's I would presume that a plan, that most people would know that a plan should be updated over time, and particularly if it's 20 years old and beyond, giving me the eyebrows. But,
This, or, this is I'm just babbling here. This is an update
no, you're not.
of the 1998, or whatever it was, 2006, 06 management plan. This plan, this update is quality.
I'm sorry, could you excuse me for just a moment?
Yep. You don't want to get that expensive car wet out there, come on now.
The sunroof might be open.
Heard thunder.
Oh, is that what it was? I think my window's down.
Steve, have you ever been to Portugal?
No.
It's beautiful.
I would think it would be.
Yeah.
My wife got to go to a 3-week, her and her mom had like a long trip to Italy
Okay,
and all over the place. And I could see that the Mediterranean would really be someplace to see.
we had the best week, and it was a wedding.
Oh, wow.
But Lisbon for 3 days, and we drove down to the southern coast, right on the water, and it's gorgeous.
Is it actually doing anything out there yet?
It's raining.
Either that or you got sweaty on your way out?
Yeah, a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B.
All right. So understand too, Steve, the suggested removal, second cut of shelterwood system in around 10 years, does that mean in the future, 10 years in the future
From the writing of the plan.
of the update?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that stand came in, again, like it says in the description. Part of what I've learned over time has been that, you know, stands of pine in this area were pine often because of the old agriculture that was its base usage. And, you know, that was primarily, even the soils might be better suited for the hardwoods that are on the lot, similar to the opposite side of the road.
Yeah.
But because, in my opinion, it was tilled and or pastured with critters, you ended up with pine on that side versus hardwood.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're talking about, you know, how you harvest it or how you treat it, you do have the question of saying, is this the right tree for the site?
Yeah.
And, the thinning turned out really, really well over there. The overstory is in great shape still,
Yeah, yeah.
but it was not opened up to the point at which I saw pine germination.
Okay.
You didn't see pine germination?
No, it was mostly hardwoods.
Okay.
We talked about all the 2 and 3 inch hardwoods that are bending over.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, again, the soils that are more organic and heavier, a little more water, a little more nutrients, a hardwood will generally outcompete a pine. So again, if it became pine because of the agriculture that suppressed the original hardwoods when that lot turned back into forest from farm, now we're looking at coming to the so-called, or at least the end game of the life cycle of the pines, and saying to what extent do you go to get what, for the lack of a better term, I'll call the wrong or unnatural tree for that site type of situation.
It's science.
There's a lot more to it. Yep.
No, I know, you're a pro. So there are basically three stands. Okay, stand 4, got it. Steve, I don't know if you can answer this question, but based on your expertise of these four different stands.
Yep.
How many years before you could have a decent timber harvest that would be worthwhile mobilizing a crew with?
That could truly come at any time. The crux of the conversation has to do with what happens to the woodlot and how it's received along the way. That's really the nitty-gritty, John, is what we're finding, for example, like we mentioned about pine versus oak regeneration
Right.
style.
Right.
I'm going to be general, not necessarily about this lot.
Absolutely.
But like I mentioned, the largest problem that we have in managing what I'll call smaller non-commercial woodlands in southern Maine is the idea that people very specifically want them to be what they are, and they believe that it's always going to look like that. So the problem is the reception of these things. If we were farther north or in more we had more of a accounting background of how these things would be calculated and when we would do this work, that work could happen most any time. But like I said, if we have a stand of wood which is coming in at least very much in the second half of its lifespan, in the second half of this rotation, we have the overstory, which was left from before, is becoming mature. And at any given point in time, we need to decide and have a plan as to when and how we would like to get the next generation started. So that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's the crux,
Yeah.
is, you know, there's a lot of timber out there that would very much, it would have value for sure, but we have so many more goals than just the money of things, that we have to really identify how all of those come together, and that's really where we have a hard time bringing the town to a consensus on what to do, and usually these things end up becoming very hard to negotiate our way through. And then even if it could be of the utmost importance to the forester, may die on the vine, figuratively speaking.
Understand.
So that's, I have got very much to come into things as the forester with the concept that it is the idea from most people, and they're not wrong, that when you talk to a surgeon, if you need a doctor and you go talk to a surgeon, his recommendation is going to be to operate. If you talk to a forester, he manages his woodlot by doing these things as well, in this manner. So, like I said, we have varying designs on what a forester's job description could be, and when you really start to bring everything together,
Yeah.
it's very hard to thread that needle.
Thank you. Yep.
Thoughts?
Well said.
Right. Last page,
Sorry?
last page, appendix A. Under basal area.
Oh, the appendix page? Yep, sorry. Oh, look, I got the Hebo-Hybo name on that one. On the soils map. Okay, yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line down,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
without the size of these trees taken. You're missing an eye.
Oh, missing a nine.
Not to be nitpicking, but
I thought you and I were gonna get into a fist fight over basal area here. I mean, we're gonna have some trouble, my guy. Forester discussion. I'll take into account any particular spelling. I'll definitely fall on my sword for that.
no, I read that. It's accurate.
Basal area is in, and you know this as well as anybody, basal area, trying to explain basal area to a layman is something that just
When I
glazes over like that, and I can tell you that not 5% of the people that you explain it to, even to the level of a textbook, can truly follow what it means. So,
when I taught small woodlot management,
yeah.
and I would explain basal area. You just, if you went in and you cut every tree off at 4.5 feet.
Oh, that is how I explain it, yes.
You take the area of that stump, add it all together, that's the basal area.
Correct.
So,
That is the true definition of it.
yeah.
But to an extent of what that means to the forest is
Well, that's why we have, a whole course on silviculture.
true.
Any thoughts?
Not many, just as a general rule. The only thing that I really had a thought about was something you already brought up, was that in the narrative, the and to perhaps add these lots to the town forest. But it is also a narrative statement, so having sort of that conversational.
What was the
dialogue.
statement that you specifically said?
I'm sorry, it was the second half of the very last sentence on the narrative.
Yep.
Was the same thing Mike brought up. Just when I hit that, after that comma,
About the update, I wrote down the update part and the no inventory part.
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry, and to perhaps add those lots to the town
Oh,
forest.
yeah, okay.
Just, it tripped me up a little bit, but I like that it sent that flag up of, oh, that's a possibility, that's a potential possibility in the future, and this is a narrative statement, so that, in my mind, that kind of a little bit more casual language, if it has any place, it has a place right here.
Well, so, and again, this is me asking a question, not
Yeah,
making
yeah.
a statement. Reading the section about the boundary lines as part of that, You know, I did bring up the Han lot not having any boundary markings whatsoever that could be found by surveyor background people and forester alike. And then that the Grant lot really had probably 50% of its markings were found. When I did the work on that property before in '06, I had permission from both landowners. I did the work for the town on the town's side of the line and for Grant on his side of the line. Having said that, I was able to bring both parties back together and say, if I draw a line between this pipe and that tree and that corner over there, are we good with calling that for this purpose the boundary? And I got, you know, a confirmation and affirmation of that, right, exactly. But having said that, you know, if there were to be ever more work done out there again, when you have, you know, a new owner to the property, you know, the Grant family, the property changes hands, who knows what might happen, then that's really where the statement starts, because I know that the Hahn property, for example, no one in that family actually knew where it was even drawn. They have no idea where the Hibo Road is. They've never been out there. It's an out-of-state family. So again, that was kind of the concept behind this was, and I can say this easily within public consumption of this meeting even, in that if there were ever an opportunity to the town to incorporate that property into the town forest, because the property survey would cost more than the land would be worth, then I found that as a great opportunity to have that conversation and say, you know, hey, look, guys, I don't, you know, I know that everyone thinks that every piece of land is worth a mint and go to the bank and, you know, there's gonna be a subdivision and it's worth $1 gajillion.
Zillow says.
But those properties are so far back in the woods and have no actual road access that it would be great and should be considered a pretty easy conversation to say, you know, if you guys ever have an idea that you would like to dispense of those properties from your family, we could entertain the idea like these other conservation pieces that we've talked about bringing them into the forest. And it would, again, with the money that you would spend on actually identifying that property of where its property bounds would actually be,
You'd be a wash anyway.
it would be a wash anyway. So it would be a great opportunity for us to have that conversation with these families. Was kind of where that would go. If it was a roadside piece and it was, you know, an eminently developable property or something along those lines, I could see where the value would be much tougher to negotiate. But on a property back there where practically neither of those families may specifically know where it even is, just keep in contact with the families, should something ever.
And that's great. Anybody that reads this plan, I want them to have that same flag go up in their head of like, oh yeah, like that needs to be at least in the back of our minds when we're thinking about this property.
Just as a little background for you two, I don't know if were you on when Sherry was on the committee?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, so Sherry was on the committee for almost a year, and her thought on, because we are the Conservation and Forestry Committee, is, you know, pieces of land that may come up that have some conservation value, like vistas or, you know,
Whatever that specific value might be.
Right.
Yeah, right.
then that might be something that the town should invest in. On the flip side, because of the surveying costs to figure out where that is, maybe we ought to talk to the landowner and say, you know, it's gonna cost you, you know, more money than what the lot's worth to find out where it is, if you wanna work out a donation.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I mean, the way that I look at these sorts of things is, and this isn't trying to get something for free or anything along those lines, but if you were to go out there and have a quote from a surveyor to say, I want all my property lines on either of those two things laid out, the number would A, be astronomical, and B, would, like I said, cost more. It would be at least half the purchase price, if not more. So if a family were to be in the right position to say, you know, we don't have any use for this property any longer. It's not served our family any use over the years. We're just paying tax on it for something that we don't even know where it is. Then a good process that has made sense in previous land dealings that I've seen would be that you go straight to the assessment value of it and say, we don't really know where it is, but it's assessed at X, and use that as a starting point. Whether that's of a purchase or whether it's of, you know, depending upon the financial condition of a family, it may even be that that amount of dollars might help a family's financial situation for a tax credit sort of situation, if you follow what I'm getting at. You know, as a deduction. If you're granting it and you have income elsewhere, then perhaps that could even make a family's financial situation easier and possibly make the negotiation on behalf of the town a little easier as well. Because you will not find someone who would want to buy that land. It just isn't going to happen. So yes, we can get into a big discussion on what it's worth, and is it worth $1 gajillion or is it worth zero? But if you start at an assessment and say, you know, what are the family's needs, where are we? You know, it is worth something to the town, but it isn't necessarily, you know, doesn't have to be a win the lottery is the only way we're gonna get to buy it kind of situation, you know? So, anyway, that's just giving you a bit of an overview on those two.
Good job with it.
Because the outside boundaries of those properties are the North Country land lot that this refers to around the outside edge. So if those two, in theory, in the future, were to come into the town property, now we know exactly where all of our property lines are, because North Country land is the old valley, and they have marked all their markers and their lines with blazes and 4-foot granite monuments. Make a forester super happy to be able to find those things, and you know, like nobody seems to want to do anymore. But the punchline is these two lots have no road frontage, are completely, at least on 3 sides, within the town forest, and abut that other lot. And if they were to come in, then we would know the property line and we wouldn't even have to survey it to find out. So it would just be a great situation if you had a willing participant to the negotiation.
Steve, did you see any evidence of hunting or trapping?
I didn't see any evidence of it. I don't doubt that that's the case, but that is a long way to go.
We saw some shotgun shell casings, but that was, I think, at the party place.
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, again, I don't doubt that you get people running up and down that road during deer season and then jump off the ATVs or out of their pickup trucks and chase Bigfoot or whatever they're after. I don't know.
Well, you mentioned bear and moose, so.
Yeah, well, the reason the thing about the bear, of course, is that home ranges of bear, you know, we have bear that show up in action all the time. And everyone believes that they may. I love it when people refer to the idea that a bear is living in my backyard. No, he's not living in your backyard. A bear's home range is X numbers of square miles. He may be in your backyard, but he doesn't necessarily live there. So when you're talking about certain critters like moose and bear, the home ranges are so large that this area of town has a lot more applicability to those critters than to a white-tailed deer, let's say, that may, you know, live in its entire life within a couple hundred acres.
I'm good.
It's the will of the committee with this draft.
I'd make the few edits that we've already discussed and run with it.
So what I will do is I will make these updates. You know, I don't want this to be a never-ending process where I keep updating.
No.
I mean, obviously in 10 or 15 years that will be the case, but I'm still cooking. But yeah, I'd like to just go ahead and I can fire off another emailed copy that I didn't give to you today, but with these updates in them for just a quick look. I don't want to bother to bring it back to the town again. But if I give an electronic copy to all of you guys, take one more quick look at it, and then I'll produce and I will submit to the town a hard copy of the plan, an electronic copy of the plan, and then of course, you know, the bill for services. But that shouldn't take all that much more for what amendments you guys
The
have.
town is very lucky to have you two. I mean, truthfully, you have knowledge and this is a science.
Well, and this guy over here is a wildlife guy, so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm not practicing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I got my bachelor's in wildlife ecology from UMaine. These maps, so they bring me back to GIS. Oh my god.
When did you graduate?
2015.
Here we go.
GIS, what's that?
Yeah, I know. Do you have drafting tables when you did it?
Right.
I still have my drafting tools.
I actually, somewhere in my closet, I still have the, I'm gonna call it a big protractor, the acreage calculation thing that you stick to the table that you draw with, and you put the grid down and count all the dots and all those.
Count the dots?
Yep,
I tell you, I counted.
old
more-
school, baby.
I counted more dots than,
Now you just do control dots and it
That's
just
right.
counts them all.
They're discontinuing my arc view though, John. What am I gonna do with this thing? My arc map program is, anyway.
So I think we need a motion, so that the town board of selectmen see that we've reviewed this and are willing to, move this on.
Not for nothing, but can you do that?
I just thought about that. We don't, if you abstain, which you shall,
Correct.
uh,
That still begets a
yeah,
quorum.
yeah, that, we
If
still
I
have a
abstain,
quorum,
that's still a
and
quorum,
it's
right?
3-0 to 1.
Okay.
We're assuming, yeah,
I'd like to make a motion that that Steve makes the edits that we've discussed in our review. That he send an electronic copy to the committee for one last quick review. And then submit a hard copy and an electronic copy to the town.
I second that motion.
John, do you have that?
Or words to that effect.
Jim makes a motion that Steve makes the edits to the management plan that were suggested during this review. He submits an electronic copy to the committee for additional review, and then submits both electronic and physical copies to the town when approved.
I'm good with that.
Good? Does
Yes.
that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. Yeah, that's cool.
Gotcha. Did you write draft on all the copies? that you
Yes.
handed out?
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome to just hang on to those. Again, I will create another.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, great, awesome.
And again, good job, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
New business, I haven't talked to, well, I did talk to the game warden, but I think that was before the last meeting, so I have nothing new to report on that. And,
And anything that, Steve, you've been talking with the deputy about is not what we've been proceeding with here. Is that correct? Earlier you mentioned you'd spoken with somebody who might.
yeah, that wasn't something that, I mean,
Okay.
I don't mind that the substance, is known, but I don't know
Doesn't
that I
need
would
to
put
be.
that in the minutes.
No, gotcha.
and I did check, when I talked to the game warden previously, I thought he was gonna leave some signs off at the town hall, and I asked for those, and they haven't received anything, so.
If you do, if it's any easier, by all means, you're welcome to give me his contact information and I can connect the dots on that.
I think I just called the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Warden Service and they directed me to this guy. It wasn't to Steve
Yeah, they don't,
Thistlewood.
it wasn't,
No, it was another game warden.
oh, this isn't Thistlewood we're talking about?
The last time I talked to a game warden, it was not Thistlewood.
Oh,
Was it Corporal Smart?
No.
I thought it was specifically Thistlewood that
Brett
were,
LeBlanc, does that sound?
The only two, my initial contact was with Smart, and then he sent our information to Steve Thistlewood.
Okay, well, I can call Thistlewood, I'll call the state, I don't know how to get direct call to Thistlewood, they block their numbers.
no, I understand that for
Yeah,
sure.
so I'll have to call the state, and
Okay,
and then when they call, you can't see their number.
again, I understand all of that, right?
So,
When you talked to him, was he wearing a mask?
yeah,
Okay, well, we can work through that, but
Yeah.
if, all I was getting at was if I have more first-hand information than he may need, then I'm certainly okay with
maybe, okay,
doing it direct with whoever.
if you wanna handle that, then go ahead.
Okay.
Cause you would, instead of giving the GPS stuff to me and the maps, and then I have to do that, just go.
Just get rid of the middleman.
Yep.
That's fine. But you're not thinking that the fellow that would be in on the enforcement of this as time goes by would be Thistlewood?
I think it would be, but he was off. I think he was off, so they sent,
Oh, okay, well, that's fine. I just, that's not gonna change our process, though. I didn't know if you were saying Thistlewood came here, but this isn't necessarily his job to be doing in the field stuff.
no,
Therefore, it would be like, we'd be passed off.
yeah.
Thistlewood is still the guy.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, okay,
And if he isn't, he'll tell you.
okay.
Do we, I just noticed in the bag, there's a fair number of signs left. Do we want to put some of these on the town farm lot? There's
Excuse me.
15 to 20 if I take some for the Wilson Lake lot.
I don't see any reason why not, unless we think the sign should be changed or we should wait for some particular reason. Again, in my mind, the corners are important,
Okay,
the frontage.
if we want to wait until July, that's the new budget, and we should have $500 in our budget if we want to spend some more money on signs. If we think we need them for the town forest lot.
If that's the case, then I would presume to want to wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess that, maybe that begs the question that we ought to buy some more signs.
And so the signs that the warden may provide, are those more for examples, or does he provide potentially enough signs to actually post things?
Well, they were like, no ATV, you know, I didn't bring it with me.
Or is that just like, would you just give one copy of each, so we've got like a
I would be very, we didn't overly ask him that question when he was here, but I would find it very hard to believe that they give enough signs to actually do the job. You know, in my impression is that we need our signs out there regardless.
Right.
Right.
And then in the areas where we are having abuse, then the sign, don't do this, don't do that.
Gotcha.
Those are the ones that if we get, you know, a dozen from him,
That's what I asked for
yeah,
with this guy that I talked to.
okay.
So,
Yeah, they don't, I mean, the state does not want to be in the business of providing signs to all landowners for every purpose the landowner might deem necessary.
That's too bad.
so do we want to make a motion to purchase some more signs? Because if we wait till next month, Or do you wanna wait till next month to make that motion? We can't do anything until after the new fiscal year starts, which is July 1st.
Well, not for nothing, but next month is only in like 3 weeks anyway.
I'd like to wait,
Okay.
but I would like to ask Thistlewood, who is our local landowner relations warden,
Yeah,
That is, yes, right, go ahead.
how many signs we could get for free. Because Andrew Smart, in my first contact with him, the sergeant, said, we have signs at no cost and appreciate you and your organization allowing activity on the land. So I'd just like to, whoever speaks to
Yep,
them,
yep.
just say, hey, what are we talking about? Are we talking about 5 signs, or could we get 100 if we needed them?
Right.
And
I don't have any particular rush on doing it. Again, we currently don't have the abuse on that lot than we have on the Hebo-Hibo lot. So like I said, as far as I'm concerned, our signs need to go up regardless.
right.
Right.
And like I said, the others are more the instructional signs, for the lack of a better term, or don't do signs.
And when I talked to the game warden, Jim, I said, if we put those signs in the areas that are
Mhm.
being abused, that's all we need. We don't need, like I said, hundreds of them.
Well, you're not gonna have a town of Acton conservation land and then everywhere we go, like one right next to it as we go down the road.
Just a whole tree full of
That's right,
signs.
yeah.
Okay, so your recommendation is to wait? Okay.
Yeah.
And-
I don't think we're talking a long time regardless
2
anyway,
weeks.
so yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we'll wait on that. And I'll confirm that we can spend money after the 1st. Anything else?
Can I fire off a new business question?
Sure.
Who was our new liaison?
Oh,
Oh,
thank you very
Good,
much.
good call.
That is Tom McGurty.
Okay.
And he sent an apology to Jen. I don't know why he didn't send it to me, but also, he couldn't make tonight's meeting. I'll inform him when our next meeting is, and hopefully he can make that one.
Okay.
So,
Do you know how to spell his last name?
McGurty.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, because that was my mistake. I forgot.
Got your back, bro.
Thanks. All right. Good?
Good. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Great.